There is a really big question sitting quietly beneath literally every tech headline and breathless keynote right now. Is the AI revolution actually an impending apocalypse, or is it just a brilliantly disguised wealth transfer? We keep hearing that artificial intelligence is going to change everything, but we really need to stop and ask, who exactly is it changing everything for?
Welcome to this explainer. Today we're looking at the AI power shift, hype, wealth, and the illusion of disruption. We're going to rip the mask off what might be the most consequential power shift of our generation. Because right now, tech companies are selling us convenience, but what they're actually doing is fundamentally restructuring societal power. So, let's look past the code and the algorithms and focus on the real-world tension, the conflict, and the consequences.
Okay, let's start with the catastrophizing. You've definitely heard the quotes, right? Elon Musk saying things like, AI and robots will replace all jobs. Working will be optional. Other tech leaders are casually talking about a superintelligence that could literally wipe out humanity. It all sounds incredibly frightening, and to be honest, incredibly powerful. But think about it. Why are billionaires selling us this dystopian, godlike vision of their own products? Why on earth would you market your technology as a potential apocalypse? Well, to answer that, let's actually look at the data. If there is this existential, job-destroying meteor hurtling toward the labor market, you sure wouldn't know it from the numbers. The current U.S. unemployment rate has been hovering right around 4.5%. Youth unemployment is actually slightly below the historical average. And get this, business formations have doubled per capita over the last decade. The data totally pulls the rug out from under the whole immediate job apocalypse narrative. Look, AI doesn't need to be perfect to eventually replace millions, but right now, that massive wave of unemployment simply isn't here.
So what's the actual goal of all this hype? Simply put, catastrophizing is just a brilliantly effective marketing tactic. If you're a CEO and you're trying to justify massive, multi-billion-dollar infrastructure investments, you need a story that pulls the future forward. You have to convince the market that your tech is so world-altering that it justifies skyrocketing your valuation and giving you endless access to cheap capital. They aren't predicting the future. They're just fundraising. Let's move on to Section 1, Following the AI Money. People are definitely starting to sense this shift. There's this stark, really unsettling income divide in how AI is perceived right now. The only demographic that views AI overwhelmingly positively are people making over $200,000 a year. Think about that. For the 1%, AI means skyrocketing portfolio equity and these crazy new productivity tools, but for the working class, the 99% reality is just noticing rising energy bills from massive data centers being built down the road, with absolutely zero access to the financial upside.
And this dynamic really illustrates the mechanics of that divide perfectly. It's not just a tech upgrade. We're looking at a literal blueprint for wealth transfer. As automation increases, it actually suppresses wages for everyday workers by creating an oversupply in the labor market. That reduction in labor costs then allows massive capital to just accumulate at the very top. And what do they do with all that new wealth? They just reinvest it right back into more AI, accelerating the whole cycle.
The crucial takeaway here is that without any sort of regulation, this isn't just a passing market trend. It acts like a runaway engine. Without intervention, projections show total wealth accumulation skyrocketing upward, designed to endlessly concentrate wealth among the elite while leaving the rest of the labor force totally stagnant. Basically, the future may end up rewarding ownership way more than it ever rewards labor.
And man, the pressure to keep this engine running is enormous. Just look at the unsustainable math driving the industry right now. You've got companies like OpenAI marshaling nearly $200 billion in infrastructure investments against just $30 billion in revenue. It totally echoes the massive overbuilding we saw during the dot-com bubble or with the early railroads. To survive their own inflated valuations, these tech giants are going to be forced to demand massive labor market efficiencies from their clients. In plain English, their survival absolutely depends on eventually destroying labor costs.
Which brings us to Section 2, the white-collar reckoning.
For our entire lives, we were told the path to absolute security was getting a college degree and a desk job. But we're seeing a fascinating, counterintuitive reality unfolding right before our eyes. Right now, unemployment is actually lower for non-college vocational workers than it is for college graduates. The physical world is thriving, while it's the knowledge workers who are suddenly staring down the barrel of displacement.
The irony here is just unbelievable. While junior coders, legal associates, and middle managers are facing direct threats from algorithms that can write code and review contracts in seconds, the AI industry's massive physical footprint, building all those giant data centers, well, that demands welders, carpenters, and plumbers. Society tied its entire sense of self-worth to white-collar careers right before automation arrived, and these professionals, they are psychologically entirely unprepared for the prospect of suddenly becoming economically unnecessary.
So let's look at how this builds long-term. Even if the current unemployment rate is low, projections are warning us of the steep potential for future displacement if this cycle accelerates unchecked. And history is brutally clear on this point. You do not need 100% unemployment to break a society. At just 20% unemployment, France had a revolution and Weimar Germany descended into fascism. When large groups of people, especially young men, feel they have zero economic future, the result is profound civil unrest.
Section 3. Selling you synthetic life. But honestly, the real disruption might be psychological long before it becomes economic. The most dangerous shift isn't just happening to your bank account, it's happening inside your head. We're entering what you could call the loneliness economy. Tech giants aren't just selling software anymore, they are actively monetizing isolation. They're creating a world where the messy, unpredictable friction of human reality is being swapped out for the smooth, accommodating comfort of a digital algorithm. We're literally being sold synthetic relationships, frictionless facsimiles of life lived entirely on a screen. And the cultural impact of this is already staggering. Consider this deeply alarming statistic. 42% of men aged 18 to 24 have never asked a woman out in person. Never. We are watching an entire generation just retreat from the physical world.
I mean, it's tragic, but you can kind of understand the impulse, right? Why go through the terrifying vulnerability of real human rejection when an algorithm will never, ever say no to you? Why endure the awkwardness of trying to form genuine friendships when you can have perfectly tailored digital avatars? But here is the terrifying truth. When we outsource our social lives to frictionless technology, we destroy our human resilience. The absolute secret to success in life is the ability to mourn rejection, dust yourself off, and move on. AI is systematically stripping away our ability to endure failure.
Which leads us to Section 4, the human resilience test.
The disconnect here is just breathtaking. On one side, you have the ultra-wealthy orchestrating this massive shift. Some of these billionaires literally maintain $10 million Go plans, literal survival bunkers down in New Zealand, ready to go for when things hit the fan. It's a profound and frankly incredibly well-funded sort of nihilism. You even have tech executives openly accepting a 7 to 10% risk of AI causing human extinction simply because creating the technology feels more consequential to them than, public safety. And on the other side, you have the human necessity, the rest of society left down here to navigate real-world adversity, fighting for authentic connection and basic economic survival.
Like Scott Galloway points out, and I think he hit the nail on the head here, the biggest downside of AI, in my view, is loneliness. The true, immediate threat facing us right now isn't some sci-fi robot takeover with laser beams. It's a highly profitable, perfectly engineered isolation. It's a system that concentrates unimaginable wealth for a tiny fraction of a percent of society while quietly pacifying the rest of us with synthetic realities.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, we are really left with a choice. And it's not a technological choice. It's a deeply personal one. The tension is incredibly real, and the consequences of this power shift are already playing out in our labor markets and right in our living rooms. As the architects of this technology busy themselves building escape bunkers, what are you going to do? Will you surrender your resilience, your livelihood, and your relationships to the frictionless comfort of an algorithm? Or will you choose the messy, painful, difficult, and utterly necessary friction of being human? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning everything, and I'll see you next time.